This is the first episode of my free design course and I have already recorded the Hindi version of this course. So if you are someone from India or you understand Hindi, you can go watch the Hindi version of this course. Link is in the description and in the I button. Let's start the video. And in this I will tell you the things that are necessary for designing UI. There are so many properties of colors, but I will only cover the important properties of colors for UI design. Let's start with some basic terms. First of all, we have the hue. Now hue is the purest form of color. Like whenever you are buying something, like you're buying a car, so you tell the seller that I need a red color car. So you are telling that person the hue of that car or hue of that color. Like red is the hue. Now if you need a light red or dark red, that's a different property, but the color hue remains the same. Doesn't matter if it's dark or light. Next thing we have is saturation. Now saturation means the amount of color added to a picture. If you go back in time, then we have black and white TV. In that there was no color, and when there is no color, we say that the image is fully desaturated. And if you add a little color, then we will have a normal image. But if you boost the colors a little bit, then the image is a little saturated. You can see that thing in these two images. This image has some boosted colors and this one is a normal. And now next thing we have is the brightness. Now brightness is the amount of light incidenting on an element, and if it's a digital device like a phone or a laptop, then it's the amount of light emitting from a device. Like if you try to look at a photo, a printed photo in a very dark room, you will not be able to see it. But if you look at it in normal light, you will be able to look at it very clearly. But if you incident too much light on it, you will not be able to see it because the whole photo will convert to white. You can do it practically. You will not be able to see the image if you expose it with too much light. Now next very important thing we have is tint, tone and shades. If you take a pure hue like a blue color, and if you keep adding white to it, then the color palette that will be generated is called the tint of that color. Similarly, we have the tone and shade. The tone is simply the amount of gray color added, and shade is simply the amount of black color added. And this is what we use in UI design. We will use this concept in the end of the video to generate the color palette. Next thing we have is color wheel. Now color wheel is simply the arrangement of color based upon their hue number. Like red have some hue number, and then we have orange, yellow, green, and this same thing is available in Figma. If you just go to the fill option, then here we have is actually the color queue, but it's in a straight line. If you just start with red, then we have orange, then we have yellow, then we have green. The same thing is in the color wheel, like red, orange, yellow, green. And you can also change the color by changing the hue number. If you just type 60 here, then you can see yellow have a hue of 16. And if you're not able to see something like this, simply click here and choose HSL mode. By default it's on hex mode, and these all are color codes. We will see all this thing in just a minute. Now the color wheel is mainly divided into two categories: warm colors and cool colors. Now these two categories are divided based upon how they make us feel. Like now these are mainly colors of sun or fire, and these colors are found in nature, which gives cool feeling like ice or water. And next very important thing we have is color scheme. Now color scheme is simply the different ways of combining colors. If you want to pick two colors for your design, and it can be any design like graphic design, UI design, or a fashion design, you can use this thing to generate a good outfit for yourself. Just pick any color combination and it will work fine. And in UI design we mainly use monochromatic color combination. I will show you that thing in a minute, although monochromatic is not included in the list. The next thing we have is RGB and CMYK. Now RGB stands for red, green, blue, and CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow key. If you have ever seen a color printer, then we have 4 inks in there like cyan, magenta, yellow key. This is not pink, this is magenta, and key is the black color. It mainly controls the brightness of the color. And if you have ever seen any digital device very closely, then they have small pixels. Now these 3 pixels are used to generate every color with using some techniques, and you really don't need to remember all these things. You just need to have an idea like this thing exists and how things work. Next very important thing we have is color code. Now when you are talking to a human being, you can simply say blue color, red color, and they will understand. But that same thing is not true for digital devices. You need to tell them exactly what color you need with some special codes. Now we have different type of codes. Here I have listed down 4 of them. The first one is RGB, hue, saturation, brightness, hue, saturation, luminosity. Then we have the hex code. Now if you just look at any color code, let's say RGB color code, the first 3 numbers shows the amount of red color added. Second one shows the amount of green color added, and similarly the blue color. Now this number varies from 0 to 255. This also and this also. Now same thing happens with hex code. First one shows the red color, then green color, and then blue color. And hex code is in hexadecimal, and this vary from 00 to FF. And you really don't need to go in the technicality. You just need to know that color codes exist and some basic information like how they work. Then we have hue, saturation, luminosity. Like first 3 shows the hue, it vary from 0 to 360. Then we have the saturation, then we have the luminosity. Now these two colors are different from these because in this we are using RGB, but in this we are using the hue. Now in this hue controls the color. Like I want a red color, green color, you can control by this. But in both of these we use red, green and blue in combination to produce color. In this the hue value go from 0 to 360 and saturation goes from 0 to 100 and brightness also 0 to 100. Then we have the meaning of the color, like every color triggers an emotion. Like for example, if you take a red color, it evokes the feeling of hunger, anger and danger also. Now there is actually a reason behind this. Like in the Stone Age time or time before that, when we used to live in cave, we used to hunt and eat. Now when we are hunting, animal will die and there will be a flow of blood from that animal. That means we have found the food for that day. But red color also means danger, because if your hand got cut, then there will be a blood flow and you will die within 24 hours, because there was no medical services at that time. So it evokes both the feelings. And red color is also present in vegetables and fruits, and there are some other colors also like orange, yellow, green, which are present in our vegetables and fruits. They also evokes the feeling of hunger. So, and we use this thing in our design to communicate what we are offering. Like for example, if you take any food ordering app or groceries app, they must be containing any of the 4 colors like red, yellow, orange or green, because these colors evokes the feeling of hunger. That's why we use them in our design. So whenever you're starting designing, you have to look at the meaning of the color, like what you want your user to feel. If you want to give a feeling of trust, go with the blue color. If you want to give a feeling of royalty, go with the purple color. And one color have multiple meanings, so just Google the meaning of the color whenever you're starting a new project to choose the color, because it's very hard to remember all the meanings of a color. So whenever you're starting a project, just Google and don't try to memorize the meaning of every single color, because you will not be able to. Now before moving on to the next thing, which is color contrast ratio, and it's very important, let me show you a live color wheel and how colors actually work together. If you just go to this website, the link is in the description, it's Adobe Colors, you can just simply search it. We have a color wheel here, and here we have the color palettes. And if you just look at the top left, we have a color harmony option. Currently it's selected analogous. Now this is the color combination mode. This is the thing I told you earlier about picking 2 or more colors. There are different modes like analogous, monochromatic or complementary and shades. You can just go and explore all these things, but in UI design we mainly use monochromatic colors. We pick one hue and generate different tint, tone and shades of that color. You can also observe this thing in all the apps you are using all day. They majority of the time they use only one color. And if you want to pick a secondary color for your UI design, just pick the complementary mode or split complementary mode. If you want a tertiary color also, then this we have 3 colors. And there is another option called triad. In this also we have 3 colors. But majority of the time you will be needed monochromatic colors, because we only use one color in UI design. And I will show you at the end of the video how to generate a color palette. And you must have seen a lot of websites which offers pre-generated color palettes like this one. This is colors.o. Now we don't use these color palettes in UI design. These things are mainly for graphic design and if you are painting, because they contain so many colors. In UI design we use one color and generate the whole palette with that color, something like this. Our UI design color palette will look something like this. It will contain mainly the darks and different version of our primary color. I will show you that thing at the end of the video. Now coming back to our topic, which is color contrast ratio. Now this is very important. If you take the term contrast simply means the difference between 2 objects. Like this is my hand and this is the mouse. Now they have so much contrast in between them because they are different in shape, size, color and properties. But if you take both of my hand, they have very less contrast because they are very identical. Now similar thing happens here. We just look at the text, like this is the text and this is the background. There is so much color contrast because they are very different in color. And to check the color contrast, there is a plugin called contrast. You can simply run this plugin by going to the resources panel, then go into the plugin, then search contrast and you will be able to run it. Now there are some standards like how much the color contrast should be whenever you are designing. Now we mainly have 3 accessibility standards. Accessibility is a very big topic in itself. I will create a separate video for that. And I have already created the Hindi version of that video. You can check that video. Link is in the description and in the I button. Now we mainly have 3 standards like A, AA and AAA. Now if I tell you in a very simpler way, A means we have a very less contrast, AA means we have good contrast and AAA means we have a high level of contrast. And in UI design or any design, we try to have a good amount of contrast. Now small text are the texts which are smaller than 24 pixels in font size, and large text are the fonts that are greater or equivalent to 24 pixels. And that's also same for graphics and shapes, which is 3:1, like icons or the fill buttons or the strokes we have. In that we can go with a color contrast of 3:1, but for small text we need to maintain a color contrast of 4.5:1. Now let's see how to actually use colors in UI design. Now whenever we are designing, we don't randomly pick colors, we generate a color palette and we stick to it. If you just pick any app, they are following a color palette. They are not choosing colors randomly. Now this is what our color palettes for UI design looks like, although you can expand it more, like you can have different tint tone and shades of red color, green color and yellow color. It's up to your requirement. If you need them, you can go with them. But if you are a beginner, try to keep the number of colors as low as possible, but they should be sufficient for your design. Now, first of all, we have the primary colors. Now we pick the primary color from the logo. But in case if you don't have a logo and you are the one who is designing the logo, in that case, you have to identify what emotions you want to evoke in your user. Either it can be trust, hunger, or anger, or love. I think it's up to you. You have to select the color based upon your requirement. Now, when we are generating our color palettes, we name every single color so that we can remember which color we used for text, for background. And there are many ways to name a color, but the most common and the correct way of naming a color is this. Like we have blue 00, it's like the first palette of the primary color. Then we have blue 100, like blue 200, or you can also name it like primary 00 or primary 200, 100, 300. And then lastly, we have the primary 900. Now we have 10 color palettes here. You can increase the number if required, but majority of the time this will be sufficient for your whole design. And there are other ways to name the color, like you can go with blue 00, blue 01, blue ABCD, but this is the best options you have. So I will recommend you to stick to it. Then we have the dark neutrals or gray color, like these are the dark version of your primary color. If you just look at this color, this is actually not purely gray, it has some blue color added in it. Then we have the semantic colors or indicators. We mainly use this color to show some warning or error message or some success message. And then we have the black and white color. And in UI design, we don't use complete black color. By complete black, I mean the hash code should not be 000. It should be equal to or greater than 121212. It's recommended by material design. There is a reason why we don't use this color. Although there are some apps that use this color, but it's not recommended to use it. So you should always avoid it. Always use a color like 121212 or any other gray version which appears to be black. And we use this whole palette in both dark theme and light theme, and there are different rules to use color in dark theme. I will create a separate video about that, and I have already created a video in Hindi, so you can go and check that if you understand Hindi. But for this video we will stick to the light theme. And now I will show you how can you generate this whole color palette from your logo, or if you have a color decided. I have a Discord logo and I will generate a whole color palette with this thing. For that I will draw a rectangle. Simply press R and draw a rectangle and pick the color with the eyedropper tool. Okay, now we can delete the logo. And I will show you how we can generate color palette. Now there are plugins and templates by which you can generate the whole color palette, but first look at the technicality of how the color palette is generated. And if you're just a beginner, there is one more problem that you might be facing, like how to pick the exact color. You have decided you will use red color or blue color, but how to pick that red or blue color? For that I will show you a small text. Let me copy it first. If I just go to the fill option, and choose the HSL or HSB. I'm choosing HSB, and if you just go to the top right corner in the color cube, we call this thing color cube, the color will be fully saturated, and if you come to the left, the color will be desaturated, and if you come to the bottom, the color will become dark. Now when you are just a beginner, it's very confusing that from where you should pick the color. Now I will not recommend you to go to the top right corner or top left corner, because it will become completely white, and here it will become completely saturated. What you can do is you can divide this color cube in 4 parts and pick color from anywhere in the top right corner. Just go to the corner, move a little bit to the left, because that way you will decrease the saturation a bit, and move a little bit to the bottom, and this color will work fine. Although you can go to the left if you want a more desaturated color, but once you have a good practice of picking color, you are free to pick color from anywhere. It's not fixed, it's just for beginning, so that you don't get confused with colors. And you can do this with any color, like with the red color. I want a red color, go here in the top corner, move a little bit and come down. Now this color will work fine. Now let me show you how the color palette generated. You can use a plugin or a template to generate the whole color palette. Like I have this color palette generator. You can just change the main color and it will generate the color palette. Like if I just choose red, then it will generate a whole color palette, and you can also change the secondary color to something like this, and it will generate the whole color palette. But we need to understand how this thing works, because generating color palette is not a big deal. You can generate it in an instant. Just draw a rectangle and choose a blue color. Let's pick this one. Now to generate color palette from this thing, we will play with its tint, tone and shades, and to adjust that we need HSB curve or HSL curve. You can use any one of these. I will choose HSL. Now I will make 10 copies of this. Like select this one and duplicate, and then press Ctrl D, duplicate it 10 times. Let me count 2, 2, like one more. Now we have 10 color palettes. Now first let's rename it and press Ctrl R or Command R and type blue underscore 0 and then number. Okay, now our layers are named correctly, like blues 10, blue 9, 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. Now if you select the middle one, like the fifth one or sixth one, just move it a little bit so that we can have the primary color untouched. Now in the right side, we will have the lighter version, and in the left side, we will have the darker version. Now for the lighter version, we will select it and go to the fill option. Now to generate the lighter version of this color, we will increase the luminosity, this parameter, or the lightness of the color. Simply click here and press the shift arrow up key to move 10 pixels in the color cube. You can see that the color point is changing. Now here the color point is 68. We will go to the third palette, then click here, then go. It will be 68 plus 10. Okay, then we have second one. Click here and go to 68 plus 20. Then we have third one. Let me check what was that. It was 88. Then we will have third one and we will type like 98. Okay. Then we will have 98. And this is the lightest version of blue. And if you think the color difference between these two palettes is too much, you can always reduce the lightness between two colors. Like we jumped 10 points, you can jump 5 points, 7 points, 6 points. You can experiment with that thing until you get the perfect color palette you need. Now for the darker version, we will decrease the lightness or luminosity. For that, I will click here and press the down arrow key by holding shift. Do the same with this. I will press it 2 times. And you can generate the whole palette by doing that. So now you understand the technical reason how these color palettes are generated. You can do the same thing with the dark color. Now I will show you a plugin by which you can generate the whole palette in just one click and also add them to your local style so that you can use them very easily. And if you don't want to use a plugin, you can use this file. I will leave the link in the description. Just change the primary color and it will generate the whole palette. And later on, you can add these colors to your local style. Like click here and choose color, then choose the color from here, then choose the eyedropper tool to add the color, and you can also name it. But it's a very long process. I will show you a shortcut way to do it. But it's very important that you understand how color palette is generated. Otherwise, you will miss out on so many things. Now to generate the color palette, I will copy the hex code of this color. Simply click here and copy. Then I will go to the resources panel, then go to plugins, then search for the plugin foundation color generator. And there are so many plugins to generate color palette. You can always explore all of them and pick the one which suits you and you like the most. I will select it and type my color code here. Now there are actually 4 modes to generate the color. These are from different design systems, and if you don't know what design system is, I will create a separate video about that in detail. Now these 4 color modes, I will recommend you to go with Atlassian or material design, because if you just go in orbit, we have 3 color modes like the colors, darks, and surface. So it will be very confusing for you as a beginner. So I will recommend you stick to Atlassian or material design. Simply paste your hex code here and your color palette will be generated. Like this is the color version and this is the neutral version. So you can simply click on create style and it will add that thing to your color style. You can just simply expand it and see we have all the blues here. Do the same thing with the neutrals, create style, and it will add that to your style. But as you can see, these are not grouped correctly. So I will select the first one and select the last one and right click and add to new folder and name it darks. Now I will move this folder outside of the blue color, so I will simply drag it. Now we have all the color palettes ready. And as you can see, the B0 is moved in the bottom. So I will move it to the top like here. And as you can see that it has generated less number of blue colors. So if you want more, you can always choose material design or ant design to generate more number of palettes. Like it has 10 number of palettes. You can simply type the color here and click on create style, and you can use this one if you want and delete the other one. Simply select the first one and last one by holding shift and choose delete. And make sure that the layering name is same for both of them. Like in this we are using B900, so the color name should be same in this thing, like blue 900 or primary 900 in that pattern. And once you have generated this color style, you can always pick your UI design color from this. Let me show you how to do it. Simply I will go here and copy the design, come back to this file. Okay, now if I select this like button and go to this fill option, you see this option here. Simply click here and you can choose the color from here. I will choose this color. And whenever you are filling colors in UI design, make sure that you always check color contrast and lock your colors. That I will use these colors for text, these 4 icons. Let me show you how you can do it. Simply go to your color palette, arrange them in a way, and simply run the color contrast checker. Simply select it and I will press Ctrl Alt P to run the last use plugin, or Command Option P if you are on Mac. Now this gray 900 has passed the color contrast. So obviously I can use this for my text. Obviously I can use this for my headings. Like you can see in this, I have used this color. If I just pick it, so it's passing the contrast. Now this is the secondary text. You can see that it's containing a light version. Now whenever you're picking a color for your headings and your body text, there should be a visible difference in the color. Like if you just look closely, there is a visible color difference. Now how can you pick this secondary color? Just pick the lowest color in your dark, like simply select it. We can use this for secondary color, but there is so much similarity. We will go with gray 600, 500. You can use this color for your secondary text or body text because gray 400 will fail on a white background. But when you are placing text on a color background like this button, then obviously you have to use a lighter color like gray 00, gray 100 or 200 on a blue background. And to check that, you can simply select that text and pick the color like this color is passing and this color is failing. You can also check the same thing with the primary colors, like this color is passing and this color is failing. So we have to stick to this color whenever you are adding a text to a colored background or a black background. And same goes with the semantic colors or the indicators. You should always check the contrast with the background. Simply click it and pick the color. So it's passing the color contrast. Same thing with the lighter version, pick the color and check the color contrast. If it's passing, you can use it. And make sure that you check the color contrast of your yellow color because majority of the apps and websites ignore yellow color whenever they are using it. Yellow color generally have very low contrast in all the websites. You can go and check that. So always use a darker version of yellow so that the color contrast passes. Although yellow color will lose its beauty if you use a darker version, but it will pass the accessibility standards, which is one of the most important thing in design that you should not ignore. And there is so much to learn about color in UI design. I've just told you the basics so that you can start your project properly with the use of correct colors. And in future, I will create a detailed video about how to use colors in UI design and some advanced techniques to improve your color game in UI design. But till that time, these things are enough.